On this episode, we talk comics, Doctor Who, Dragon Ball Z, and so much more. Hey, it's another Fireside Chat. Let's get to it. Welcome to Panelism, the show where we talk about the comics and graphic novels worth having on your shelf. I am Taylor Trask, and today we are doing another Fireside Chat episode. We had so much fun with Frank Fry that we're doing it again, and this time we're dipping into the local talent here in Colorado Springs. You may have heard me mention on several occasions the comic book scene down here. There's a lot of, in addition to some amazing creators and artists living in the Springs, there is probably, maybe outside of Portland, the best per capita, I think, comic shops in the town. You've got some killer places. You've got Muse, you've got Kapow Coffee and Comics, and you have what I consider to be an institution, Escape Velocity Comics, which is both in downtown Colorado Springs, and then there's a second shop kind of out on the east side. What's the best way to describe that store?
Over off of Powers, next to the IMAX.
Perfect. So when we're talking about comic shops, like I'm really picky about sort of both the ambiance of the shop, the selection, but also the team, the staff who's there, and it. Much like a great record store from like the 70s or 80s, like, you want a staff that has a really diverse opinion, but also is really fun to talk to and just, kind of gets you enthusiastic about reading comics and graphic novels and kind of pulling you further into that world. And one of those people is on the show today. I met him through my kind of recurring appearances at the Escape Velocity Book Club, which is excellent, by the way. And just thought when we're doing these fireside chats, had to pull him in. Really funny guy. Works down here at the Bijou shop, but also at the Power shop too. Daniel Rojas, how are you, sir?
It is early on a Sunday morning, but I'm awake and I am here.
Excellent. That's all we ask of you. That's all we ask of you here at Panelism. We try to record these on Sundays. It's just a little easier, but I appreciate you getting out of bed, man, pulling yourself down here. I hope we can talk. We're going to talk about a lot of things today. Hope we don't get too sidetracked. But I guess let the folks know, kind of give us a quick little, bio. Who are you? How did you end up at the shop? All that good stuff.
My name is Daniel, as you heard. How I ended up at the shop? Wow. So I moved back here from Austin, Texas, and was working at a restaurant, which was, it's a restaurant job. You get your tips, you do your thing. But I started going to Escape Velocity, and I'm like, I need to work here. It's a cool comic book store. Mike was there. If you know Escape Velocity, you know Mike. And I applied, and I kept just calling back every week until they got so sick of me. They're like, okay, we either kill this guy or we hire him. And thankfully, they went with hire.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Nice. And what? Moving back to the Springs, I guess. Did you? How does the Austin scene compare to the Spring scene?
Oh, wow. So in Austin, the thing I love the most is you don't need a car. You can just ride a bike or, take the transit system anywhere. There's beautiful lakes. There's live music every night. Great food. The tacos. Colorado Springs doesn't have anything on Austin's tacos. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But, man.
We got to catch up to that.
the tacos. But I love Colorado Springs, too. It's home. It's where I grew up. It's nice.
Nice. How long have you been reading comics?
I'd say my first comic was actually a Bishop comic from the 90s, but I got it when I was about 10 or 11. And it was just diving into his backstory. So I'd say about 10 or 11 is when I first started really getting into comics.
Cool.
My parents thought they were devil books growing up, so not really a chance to jump in earlier than that.
Did you end up being one of those unfortunate kids who had like your collection purged when your parents were like, this is nonsense, just throw this out?
Yeah, they would look for new hiding spots that I kept the comics, and then they have you watch them tear them up.
Oh no!
So many good comics gone, man.
Oh.
I eventually we went to a garage sale and I found a briefcase, and they're like, oh, he wants to be a little businessman. There was a combination on it, and that's where I kept my comics. And one day they figured that out, and they're like, open it up, show me what's inside. And of course, it's the 90s, so the costumes are scantily clad.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, oh, so this is what you like. And ripped them up.
Yeah.
But
shucks. Well,
now I work at a comic book store, and I'm an adult, and they can't touch me.
There you go, man. And you have access to all this cool stuff. what I guess when you guys started doing the book club, you tend to be the host over at Escape Velocity Book Club, which I appreciate. It actually gives me all kinds of interesting things to talk about on this show. It does. It really sort of, as sort of an MC of that event, like you really do kind of set a great tone and great enthusiasm. I guess what is performing, or is
it's definitely performing.
Like all that's in your blood, obviously.
Yeah, I'm most comfortable in front of a crowd that I don't necessarily have to go home with. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's so much easier. I think that's why I like doing the podcast. I used to do bingo nights at bars. Before that, I did a little bit of stand-up. Before that, in Texas, I would get people involved in the church that I was used to go to. I'm no longer doing that. Before that, I would do stuff at the IMAX theater back here. When there were midnight premieres, back when people had to go hours before to get their seats.
Okay, pause there real quick. I actually miss those days.
Those were some great days, man.
I've lamented the sort of the loss, the death of the midnight, preview. Like back when they'd say, a movie would open on a Friday, and then like the first showing would be the Thursday before midnight. Mm-hmm. That would be the only time. Now it's like 7 p.m. Thursday night.
It's even getting earlier.
Oh God!
And the fact that you can buy your tickets ahead of time, and there's not that scramble to. We got to get to the theater now. Well, it's 2 days before the movie. What do you mean? Yeah. People are camping out. Got to get to the theater now.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's almost like the death of when I'm sure at some point people lamented, standing in line the night before for a concert, right. Going to the stadium and standing there and we're all going to hang out together and be first in line.
I mean, now that I'm, hitting the 30s, let me tell you, I think this is going to be our, middle-aged man thing,
right? I think so.
I think so.
I think so. Well, part of it's like I was feeling it almost transitioned right around the time I was feeling like, man, I don't know much longer I can do this. I love it, but then it transitioned. But then the thing you lose, you cannot beat the midnight crowd of a new movie. Oh. Like there's an energy to it that just you appreciate the film on such a different level.
And that's why I love doing those events where you'd have to go out there and you had hours to fill.
Yeah.
So you'd have to set up games. You'd have to get the whole crowd just ready to go, and. It was a lot of fun, man. But nowadays, people just show up and like, it could be 15 minutes before the movie. We bought our tickets in advance. We know where our seats are. Yeah. No one's going to take them. Shucks. It's fine and it's convenient, but fine and convenient is not exciting.
Yeah. One more thing to plug before I forget. You also are on a podcast, a really great podcast called Escaping Podcast. Is it the Escaping Podcast?
So it's just the Escaping Podcast.
Cool, okay.
We tried thinking of different names, with the store, but then we weren't the store's podcast. Escape Pod, but we're like, no, that's not us. And we're like, okay, the Escaping Podcast, and just kind of landed there.
Yeah.
And it's weird because most podcasts don't have the word podcast in their name.
I know, right?
And when we came to, after, a month or so, we're like, it's a little weird. But that's what makes it ours.
Yeah, so. I love it. Well, you guys have kind of come along. I mean, even in the short episodes or the few episodes you've done so far, like you guys have evolved nicely. Like I love it because like we all kind of start in that same place of like, how do we do this? Where do we go? Like, and then just see it kind of build as you go is really fun. So, man, I can't. I guess is there anything upcoming that you want to talk about or promote real quick?
So
on that?
We actually just restructured the show to be a little bit more series based. Before it was one shot, kind of episodic. Mm-hmm. This is what we're talking about this week. Starting with our last episode, we're doing a Black History Month series. I won't really say what we have for next month. It's kind of keeping it under wraps. Don't want you to peek too much behind the kimono, but we're doing a more series based, so that way we all have a chance to do a little bit more research, and instead of it being our opinions on it, we can get into the history of what some of these comics really are.
Nice.
Where they started, what the struggle was, who decided they didn't want to be on it, who pulled a Jack Kirby and said, I'm done, I'm going to the competition. But, just check it out. It's on Spotify. Right now we're having some issues with Apple Podcast and Google Play, but Spotify is the best place to find us.
Nice. More and more Spotify seems to be kind of the default place. Everybody's going, that's interesting.
They're reliable.
Yeah, that's true. Well, let's jump in. One of the things we like to talk about, obviously, on the show are the comics and graphic novels worth having on your shelf. So I always like to ask guests in here, and this may go any number of ways, so I won't hold you to it. But are there, if you could pick 3 to 5 sort of series or individual books or even one shots that have kind of shaped your fandom of comics, that if you look back and you're like, if my house ever burned down, I'd run in and save these books because I know, these will keep me sort of sane through the stress of everything.
Okay. Right off the bat, I'd have to say the Messiah saga from the X-Men series. It was after when Hope Summers was born, and was it Messiah Complex, Messiah War, and there's another one which I'm blanking on, but it's a 3-book arc, and it's just so cool the way it travels across space and time. And you've got Cable, you've got Bishop, and it's this eternal struggle over this young mutant girl and her place as the mutant messiah. It's so good. That'd be the first one.
Well, real quick on that, and this is my ignorance of like all the X-Men continuity. Have they had a chance yet to name check or deliberately reference that in House Powers of 10 or any of the new Hickman?
Hope?
Yeah, just with that Messiah storyline.
Oh my God, yeah. So she is now part of the 5, which are the team that resurrect mutants now. That they have this.
She's one of the 5.
She is,
okay.
Yeah, she is the conduit.
Okay.
They all work really well, but then when you have Hope who can mimic abilities, and channel it through everyone, it's a symphony. So
cool.
Yeah.
So that's Messiahs. That's one.
That's so good. I've had some controversy with some people talking about this, and this is a little more recent, but Black Science.
I know. I was hoping you'd say Black Science. Now,
yeah.
We had a Black Science book club last year, and it became clear to me very quickly, like, this is religion to him. He loved. Now, what hooked you into Black Science?
I love the flawed characters. These are not. It's space travel. It's dimensional travel. It's these people going from reality to reality, messing up everything they touch, but they're not heroes. They're flawed people. They're human. And they all are selfish in one way or another, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 characters. And I've always liked the idea of not dealing with the Superman archetype, you know? I don't want someone whose perfect smile is in my face. I want someone who is just as messed up as me, who will sometimes make the wrong choice at the wrong time. And yet there's still this human aspect of we're all just trying. And they're all just trying. Even the antagonists, I wouldn't call them bad guys. That's kind of rude. But the antagonists, you can still see their motives and why they're doing what they're doing. It's kind of nice. Like when, the villain in movies and media stop being so black and white, and you start to understand, there's this big gray area that we all live in that no one's really looking at. I love that about it. Also, the idea of fighting against what may be preordained. What was it? Wow, can't think of words. It may be set in stone. Fighting against it and saying, I can change, I can be this, even if everything else in the universe is saying, no, you were designed for this one purpose. So that'd be number 2.
Well, there's something with Black Science too in the onion metaphor that we don't want to spoil anything, but like if you ever see on the cover, there's like a kind of one of the things I love about Image is that a lot of their creators really lean heavily into graphic design.
Oh, it's beautiful.
For either the cover art or even like the way the layout works. But there's that onion logo that you see in the Black Science. It's very recognizable. But that is more than just a flourish. Like that's an actual like metaphor for the series in a lot of ways.
It really is the series. It's the one thing that could define it right there.
Yeah.
And Matteo Scalera knows that, and his art is. It's chef kiss beautiful.
Yeah, it is very good. And that's, I hate to admit this. I love it now, but it took me, it actually took the book club to kind of force me to read it, because at first blush, I was like, I don't know if, I'm really finicky about art sometimes, and not that it was bad. I'm just like, I don't know if this is my cup of tea right now. And then the book club kind of forced me to read. I'm like, actually, this is working for me really well. So
yeah.
It asks a little more of you, I think, than something that's a little cleaner. There's just something about it that once you realize how it meshes with the story, then it really starts to work.
Well, and I think you said it right there. Yeah, it's not clean.
Yeah,
You can see the straight lines that other people use, and then you see the chaos that is his art.
Yeah,
and you're like, wait, those colors bleed into these colors in a weird way. But it's the story,
Yeah, it's intentional.
Oh man.
Yeah. Has that series ended?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And I cried.
You did. Okay. So you were happy with the end. Okay.
The ending was so perfect, and one of the best things is I got to the last issue, and it's a thick issue, and Rick Remender in the foreword says, "Hey, listen to this album while you're reading this issue," and it was hitting beat for beat, man, and. Maybe that's why I cried. It had a score to it. It was what he had in mind and what he was listening to when he wrote it. It was fantastic. I could talk about Black Science all day, but that wasn't the question you asked me.
That's all right. No, that's good. I'm always curious because we have a lot of these series now, and again, we lean so heavily into image on the show, and I don't intend to. We ended up coming back to there, but so many of these kind of like, I would say, series across any publisher from the last 5 or so years are kind of coming to an end. You got Black Science, you had Wicked and Divine, you have East to West, you have all these different series that had been with us for so long. What was the other one? Oh, Invincible just ended recently.
That's also on my list. It's
great
because it's the best superhero story I've ever read. It's a perfect coming of age in a universe where even after it ends, spoilers, the universe still, you get to see it going on in like just little clips here and there saying, hey, the story's over, but the world's still turning.
Yeah. Invincible, did you start reading that from issue 1 or when did you?
No.
Because that's a long canon.
So I started right before it finished by about maybe, let's say, 6 months.
Okay.
And I was doing this thing. I was new at the comic book store, and excuse me. Whew. Everyone gave me a list. Here's what you need to read. And we had so many slow days, and I was able to take some books home. And I just started knocking it out. First volume of Invincible, I thought, okay, kind of corny. Kid gets powers, but I want to see where this goes. Then I read the second one, and I'm like, something's not right here. Something there's something underneath right under the surface. And then when you get to that Omni-Man turn, I was hooked.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to eat anything other than Invincible. That's all that I was craving. And there were so many moments, my coworker and I would be sitting there, and I'd hit a beat where something horrible happened. And I'd have to stop. And he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I need to go take a walk. And it's just such good storytelling, the way that he did it, man. That is Walking Dead, Robert Kirkman.
Yep.
And Walking Dead I didn't even read until, just recently.
How do you think that dude, there's a couple creators who are so prolific, like it baffles the mind that they're able to have, just one great series alone is a lot of work. And some of these guys have 5, 6, 7 series that are concurrent. Yes. And it's just like, the fact that he was able to wrangle both Invincible and Walking Dead, plus some other stuff, but those two, and at that quality, which Invincible, the magic trick of that for me is every volume gets better and better and better and better. Yes. It's like he keeps rethinking how to do it, and he just gets better and better at doing that thing. And not that the previous volumes or issues are bad, but it's just to see a series get only stronger as it goes was just amazing.
And I think that's the thing, because we are experiencing Mark growing up and maturing, and the book does it with him. Yeah. And that is so cool, because you don't see a lot of books that do that. They're
both in the art and the story.
Oh my God, Ryan Otley's art going through, it gets so much more intentional, I think is the word I'm looking for. When you get to the big brain guy.
Oh God, of course.
Oh man,
I'm stuck too.
Yep.
Furious Googling is happening right now. You can hear that in the background.
It's gonna hit me.
Christ.
But basically, when they get to that arc, and it's really, he's going through dimensions, and he has to fight himself multiple times. The art becomes so much more intentional, and the storytelling isn't like, oh, here, face nega Invincible. It's like, no, dude, here's what you could have been. Yeah. And even to the point with Adam Eve, after he's gone for so long, and he comes back, and she's gained weight because of the pregnancy and everything. Yeah. And the way they dealt with that was so good, because she can change how she looks. Yeah. But he's like, no, like, this is who you are. And it's so body positive. The fact that his friend who's making all the gay jokes before, he turns out, this guy was, closeted, and now he's out and he's happy, and it's wonderful. Oh. And
then the way they're able to, whenever you can do that in a way that serves the story, like, first and foremost, and isn't just there as like we're gonna be PC, like, that's fine, but like, I'd rather it serve the story. Right. Invincible, like, it's so a part of the story that they can just play in all these sandboxes, and it feels completely justifiable, and what's going, like, all of that stuff it feeds into the greater narrative, which I love. I'm like, do that all the time.
Yes, no, and Kirkman, he's really good at that. Walking Dead was fantastic, so much better than the show. I was satisfied with the way it ended. Yeah. And not to dunk on the man in any way, shape, or form. I didn't get that same hype from Oblivion Song. and a lot of people seem to enjoy it. I guess it's just not my cup of tea at the moment.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I've been keeping tabs on it.
Same, yeah.
And just like, well, we'll see, at some point. But something about Invincible, the other thing about Invincible that hooked me, because I came in around the Viltrumite War.
Oh, man.
And so a lot had already happened that I had to catch up on quickly. And they did this beautiful thing. I forget which trade paperback it was, but and maybe they do it in multiple ones, but they did this thing where it's like, in like 2 pages, they were like, here's to catch you up. Boom, 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 boom. And it was like just enough where I'm like, oh, I know what this is all about now. And I could Wikipedia a little bit more. And eventually I went back and reread. But it was such a great mechanism to just get me in at that point. And then to realize, and this is a weird kind of crossover, but there's so much. We're both big Dragon Ball Z fans. We talked about before we started recording. And there's there's so much of like, not that he's ripping it off, but like there's so many kind of similarities with the Saiyans coming to Earth and kind of blending in amongst the Earthlings, and the Viltrumites doing kind of the same thing, and just their sort of godlike Saiyan-like power, and the fact they all have black hair. And just, I was like, wait a second, this is
that very distinct mustache.
Yeah, the Viltrumite mustache, which at some point, not quite spoilers, but like when they kind of wrap the series up, you get to see where different characters are. You're like, man, that mustache is not going away.
No, it's not.
It's still there. Awesome. So, okay, we have a Messiah, we have Black Science, we have Invincible.
And I mean, there's one that I know that that I'm going to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
And that's East of West.
All right. So this is, for people listening who are sick to death of me talking about East of West, which I don't do it that much. I bring it up enough. It's almost like, the Old Testament. Like you bring it up, like you have to reference it. Because it's so important for me in terms of my kind of rebirth into comics, but then also you've got Jonathan Hickman, who is, other than Kirkman, probably one of the most prolific creators. And the things that come out of that guy's head on a regular basis, amazing. If he had just done East of West, I'd been like, well done, career over, like great. But he has all this other stuff. So what was it about East of West that hooked you in?
Immediately, as someone who grew up in a church background, my dad was a big tent revival pastor growing up, so you hear a lot about the fire and the brimstone and the end of the world. And then after my falling out with the church and religion in general, I still love the mythos of it. In the same way I love Greek mythology or anything like that. And when you get into the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and one of them doesn't want to do what he's designed to do, immediately I'm like, oh, please tell me more. Kind of like what we were talking about with Grant McKay from Black Science.
Yeah.
Him fighting against what he was designed to do, quote unquote, and, kind of breaking the system. You see Death breaking the system again. And it, I'd seen it. I'd seen the cover and I'm like, this looks like a dumb Western. I don't know if I'm going to read this. And then I saw who wrote it.
So you were already a Hickman fan at that point. Okay.
Fantastic Four, Hickman.
Okay.
The Council of Reeds, brilliant. Everything he did with Avengers and New Avengers leading up to Infinity and Secret Wars, which redefined the Marvel Universe in such a cool way. Yeah, so, and Manhattan Projects. Yeah. How can you ever forget a crazy wild ride like Manhattan Projects? Oh, man. Yeah. That book.
I've talked about this too, but like you have to think of, when you think about Hickman, go all the way back to the very beginning. His very first creator-owned thing, the very first thing he did at period was the Nightly News, and just that would have been enough to be like, dude, that you
great career, you did it.
And like the fact that was his very first thing, and it's like, and he wrote it and illustrated it, but he has that, he wasn't the best artist, so he did that wonderful thing where he did like photo referencing and all that great stuff, which
was fantastic.
I think it was great. But you add into that like all the graphic design elements, like charts and flow charts and all this kind of stuff. You can kind of see the birth of all the stuff that he has used effectively since then. Even in House of X, like it all kind of, the nexus point was Nightly News. So then like East of West was my introduction to Hickman, and I was like, who is this man? And then to find all the other stuff and Manhattan Projects and all that. And
going into it and the way that he writes it, the way that he writes Death versus all the other characters, it's so different. It's set. I guess because I grew up watching Westerns with my dad, very, very John Wayne, kind of guy. And I love the Western trope, but this was a different kind of gunslinger. And the fact that it's Death and the fact that he's just trying to find his wife, I love it. Nothing's going to stand in his way.
Yeah.
And everyone knows he's Death. So what are you going to do? You're going to kill Death? No, you're not going to kill Death. The alternate history.
Yeah.
The Civil War not ending, but the two, and with my Native American background, seeing them as the most technologically advanced people.
That is what hooked me.
Holy shit.
So I grew up in South
Am I
Dakota.
allowed to say shit?
You can say shit all you want. You can say whatever. I grew up in South Dakota where, we have a lot of reservations, and I had a lot of friends who were indigenous, and so I had a kind of a baseline for that. And to kind of know why, the kind of the raw card that tribes were dealt, and just kind of the history of indigenous, all of that, and then to see that completely flipped and to have, hey, Red Cloud pulled a Genghis Khan and united all the tribes, and they became the Endless Nation. I was like, I saw that in that East to West one, the World One Shot in the very first 2 pages. I'm like, holy crap, I want to see just a story about that,
dude. Right? Yes.
And then to have it, but then and just if that alone would have been enough, but then to flip it even further and say, and they all abandoned their spiritual kind of thing for absolute technological supremacy, losing that kind of where they came from and that part of them that made them uniquely, kind of American, like trading that, and then the struggle amongst the Endless Nation about what have we lost, what have we gained. That was amazing.
God. And it creates this whole new spiritual background for them.
Yeah.
And that's the coolest thing. What is it? The Crow and the Wolf? Or,
yeah.
Oh man, are you caught up?
I'm all the way through. Yeah.
Okay, the relationship with the wolf and the young prince.
From the New Orleans.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the most beautiful thing, because I'm like, oh wait, no. Well, and then you read the backstory and you're like, this is fantastic. Those are brothers.
Yeah.
Those are brothers no matter what happens.
From two cultures that, like, I mean, the Kingdom of New Orleans was interesting too, because they took all the free slaves and like, here's your own, kind of almost put them on their own reservation, and then they turned it into this like Wakanda of sorts, which is awesome. I'm like, but what's interesting, I mean, yeah, it's exaggerated, but you could almost look at the way they set up America at the beginning and go, I could see how this happens. China invades the West Coast, and it's the People's Republic of China. Like, it all sort of made sense, and you're like, if one thing had changed, if an asteroid had hit Missouri at this time, this could have sort of put in motion these different changes. So like that, just that alone was interesting. But then you have the apocalypse, you have all this other stuff. The other thing about it that I love is a lot of books do this, but I think this one more than any other, you can hear the voice in your head of every single one of those characters.
Absolutely, dude.
Like to the point where it's almost more it's drawn very cinematically anyway. Like Dragata's art on that is pitch perfect, but you hear, like, I hear any of the, when we start off the story, we have like all the different presidents of the different factions. Like, I don't even have to think twice about what they sound like. No, I know by their look and their dialogue. Yeah.
I hear the gravel in Death's voice almost every time.
Yeah.
And it gives me chills. And I could talk about this book for
please
ages.
Well,
but
let me ask 2 other questions. Did you like the ending without spoiling anything?
So, fun fact, I got shorted that in my box.
Oh no!
So I'm still waiting on a special ordered copy.
Oh man, we'll have to revisit that.
And I tell you, I've just been sitting here waiting, checking on it. I'm so close to, and this is shouldn't say this live or anything, but I'm so close to not going through my comic book store right now because Diamond is Diamond, and just finding it anywhere just to read. I won't read it digitally.
Sure.
I want to feel it in my hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that. But then the other question is, they've flirted with a few years now with doing some kind of live action adaptation. Good idea or bad idea?
It depends on what route they go. If they go TV show and they go through someone like, let's say, HBO or who else has been doing? Even Amazon right now. Their Boys series and Good Omens, fantastic. I've not seen his Dark Materials yet on HBO or what's the other one, Carnival Row, but I hear that those work really well. If they go that route and do the TV show aspect, I'm all for it. If they are dumb enough to try and make a movie out of this, I will boycott it. I will do a smear campaign. I will cyberbully whoever I have to get it, off.
We already had the Dark Tower. That should serve as warning for anybody. Like, don't even attempt this crap in one movie.
How are you going to try and take so much good material and put it in one movie? I understand wanting a franchise that has 9 movies.
Yeah.
But you're not Fast and Furious or Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, put it in a TV show. Let people enjoy it.
Yeah.
I guess my last book for you is a tie. And it's going to be a weird tie because I love both these books equally. And that is Saga and I Hate Fairyland.
Oh, my God. Okay, so this is
because I can't live without either of them.
Would you put these at the top of your list?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I hate to admit this. I've admitted this before. It's not new, not a new information, but for you, you may judge me. I have not started Saga yet. I understand it is something. I understand. On the other side, I absolutely adore I Hate Fairyland.
Oh my God.
And Scott,
Scotty Young.
Scotty Young, thank you. I was gonna say Scott McCloud. That's another great guy, but not
Yes.
different guy. Scotty Young though, like I would say, like that series really appeals to me because it was kind of very short and kind of self-contained,
Oh, yeah.
which it doesn't have to be for that story. It needed to end at a certain point, and it did. But it's other than Rick and Morty. Like this is like that. This could easily be an animated series, but I'm glad it isn't because I like it works best as a comic series.
It's perfect the way it is.
But it's just again, you can hear Gerda's or is it
Gertrude.
Gertrude. Thank you. You can hear Gertrude's like voice very
Yes.
clearly in your head, and it's just like, and then her little Jiminy Cricket friend who accompanies her.
Yeah, Larry.
Larry, thank you.
And he's bloodshot eyes. He's drinking all the time. He's always got a stogie in his mouth.
Yeah.
And he started off so young. And
Yeah,
full of life.
he was all like, hey, wish upon a star. And I was like, okay, kid, we're gonna go over here now.
It's one of those things, and one of my favorite things, other than the wonderful art style of Scotty Young just going balls to the wall. Here's the moon getting its brains blown out. Here's a bunch of samurai that are mushrooms. The muffin hugging flavor of it, where she can't cuss.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
almost every time it's something slightly different, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's beautiful. That's the way he writes it. It's like it's funny. You kind of feel for Gertrude, but you're also like, she's a piece of shit. So
Yeah. It's what an interesting conceit though, and you read it, you're like, wow, I can't believe this hadn't been done yet.
Right.
Like it seems so obvious once it's on the page, like this like 30-year-old woman trapped in this like 10-year-old's body or 12-year-old's body and having to navigate all this, and it's like and constantly have the world just standing in her way, and then what was the bee story? Wasn't there like another little girl who got brought in
yeah.
and she was having like the idyllic kind of version of that?
She was the one who could come in, and her name was Joy or something like that, something to that effect.
Yeah.
And the whole B story there was Gertrude was not a citizen, so that no one could really kill her. But if any other child came in and did what she couldn't,
Yeah.
Gertrude is now a
Yeah.
citizen of Fairyland and therefore can be killed.
Yeah.
And the queen, she's all about it. Claudia.
Claudia, yeah.
The names, man. The art, the names, the old dark one who like loves Gertrude like a daughter because she's so evil.
It does have that sort of Rick and Morty, like just like irreverence and just kind of like very contemporary like way of talking, like slotted into this like this trope that of, which is fairy stories, and like even in the beginning, like you mentioned it, like all these different characters are taking a turn as the narrator, the moon, and it just constantly gets like they set the tone right away.
The mouse in the second one who comes in is like, who am I covering for today? Oh no, it just sees a bodies everywhere.
Yeah. What? So okay. So that's what I guess what sucked you into that besides all those wonderful things.
My coworker Brandon Arnold, also a good friend. He's the one who's like, just give it a read, see how you feel about it. You might hate it, you might love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked it up in the first 2 pages, man. I couldn't put it down. I devoured that thing in half an hour. And I'm like, where is volume 2? I need it now. And he's like, oh, yeah. By the time it finished, I think it's the perfect ending for that story. But what really kept me going was it's kind of the same formula, where she's bashing everyone's brains in and she's doing all this crazy, chaotic stuff. But if you look at it, there is a story that is like right through it where this poor lady just wants to go home. Mm-hmm. And then you've got, Duncan Dino?
Yeah.
The kid.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad for this kid because now he's stuck there too.
Yeah.
But I guess I always love the flawed characters that you're not supposed to root for.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, yeah, no, I feel that. She just wants to go home, man. She would not kill any of you if you could just send her home. It may be in her 30s, but she misses her parents.
Yeah.
She misses what it was like to be a kid and grow up normally and be around normal people instead of a muffin hugging place like this. That's what kept me going. And
cool.
By the very end, when you hit her end, it's very bittersweet. And
but it was so appropriate.
It was so appropriate, man. There's no other way that series could end.
And I'm so glad it did. Man, Scotty Young is. It's weird to me that he's writing, but not. I love the art of Middle West. But it's just weird that he's only writing it because you're so used to seeing his iconic style.
I think he's switching into that at writer mode.
Yeah.
Now I made the mistake of he did one about middle schoolers, Bully Wars.
Okay.
And
actually, that's news to me.
I I feel bad because I went into it thinking it was going to be another I Hate Fairyland. Art style very similar. This is a book for young readers.
Okay.
It's not for me, and I didn't know that till the last issue, and then I got a little angry where I'm like, how dare you make me read 5 issues of this bullshit, and then at the end I realized this is a kid's book.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't like it, and that put me in a cynical view for Middle West.
Okay.
I had to go back recently and just start again and be like, okay, it's not Bully Wars, just look at it from a whole new perspective.
Yeah.
So
Middle West, I love it, just the look of it. I can just look at it all day long.
Oh, yeah.
But the more they're playing with it, the more I'm like, man, this may be explicitly written for me. Like, there's so much about it that's so my aesthetic that I'm like, man, this is a little eerie. Like, East to West hit that a lot of times too, but this is just like something about it reminds me of my childhood. It just has this kind of like quality to it. That's,
yeah, you can almost smell the colors.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. Okay, well, let's save the best for last. Saga. I mean, no need, not necessary to explain, why, but I guess where did you fall into that series? Like, I mean, it's expansive, it's huge. Like, where did you, much like Invincible?
First week on the job.
Wow.
Again, I got a list from CJ.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is essential reading. See what you like. Cross off ones you don't like. Saga not only sucked me in, but made me forget everything else that was going on in my life for a while. To where I couldn't keep up with a lot of things because I'm like, hold on, what is going on with these books? The art is beautiful. Brian K. Vaughan's writing is amazing. And when you pair his writing with Fiona Staples' art, you get magic. Not even just magic in the sense of it was good, magic in the sense of you have a whole new world with a whole new history that you did not know you needed to be a part of. It's wonderful, the narrative of Hazel from the future talking about her past, and sometimes she's like, just because two people love each other doesn't mean they're good for each other. Just little things like that while you're having a sweet moment. Prince Robot and the idea of this royalty that has TVs for heads, a ghost who was cut in half who was the perfect babysitter for your baby. Everything about this series is something that you didn't know you needed in your life.
Yeah.
It's on a hiatus. I hope not indefinitely, but if you get a chance,
catch up.
Oh my
jump
God.
in. Yeah, I've been meaning to, but because it's so expansive, I'm like, I kind of need the space because I know I'll get sucked in a similar way. So I kind of, now that East of West is done, that might kind of fill that void because I'm going to need something epic.
I've got the first, was it a compendium or omnibus that has everything so far?
Wow.
So yeah, I'll lend that to you and
happily. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Take as long as you want with it. It's a good slow ride.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. It's a lot of times in comics, like, it seems like you either have a very, I say straightforward loosely, but like a kind of focused premise, and you kind of work within those. And like, again, East to West is kind of like that. Like, we have the Four Horsemen and we have this alternate reality kind of US. Great, go. There's like, aliens aren't going to drop in at any point during East to West. You kind of know what you're going to get. Something like Saga feels like there's a very grounded story being told, but they've left the top open. So whatever they imagine, I mean, like the royalty with TVs on their heads, like, because sometimes you see creators do that just for the cover. It's like, well, we're going to put this cool thing in. And it's like, you're like, that's a neat idea, but it doesn't really mesh as well. And Saga, everything kind of meshes in, but it can be as interesting or as fantastical. Like, anything could happen.
And Fiona Staples is just like giddy as hell knowing I can make whatever creature I want, and that's what's in this story.
Yeah.
It's bringing it to life. I would have one honorable mention for a series, and I'll keep it short on this. Lock and Key has been a great one. I read that about, I want to say maybe 10 years ago. When it started, my buddy suggested it to me, and I'm like, this art is awful. This storyline is weird. And by the end of the first volume, I'm like, I need more.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm happy with what's going on with Netflix right now. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Read the books.
It's funny, I had the exact same reaction to Lock and Key and the exact same outcome. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it looks interesting, but I don't know. And then by the end of it, you're
faces, you're like, ugh.
Right, yeah. And you're just like, I don't know if I can look at this the whole time, but you do. By the end of that first one, you're like, wow, where is this going?
Exactly.
I need to know. And you sort of, it's weird when the story is so good. Again, I'm not saying art is bad. It's just, it's more personal taste than it is exclusively personal taste a lot of times. But like, it's great when a story is so good, it can kind of pull you over that hump. And then you almost end up liking the art more because it synthesizes, so closely with the story.
Ice Cream Man, She Could Fly, same artist, weird art.
Yeah.
Great story.
Yeah.
I can't imagine any other artist working on these stories.
Yeah. Did you ever get into Postal?
No, I haven't.
We have similar tastes, and I'm wondering, like, Postal sucked me in a bit. I always say Postal is the best TV show on print.
Okay,
like
yeah.
it was almost. I'm not sure this is just speculation, but it's almost like they made it like purely for like, we're gonna do this, and it's gonna be so obvious that somebody will pick it up, because every panel is almost like a storyboard panel.
Yes.
And it's so like, you can see the mechanics of it working. Like, I could see how to budget this and make this. It's a great graphic novel. It would be a great show too, but I mean, I'm happy it's a graphic novel, but it's the main storyline has ended, and now they're almost doing like a kind of a sequel series to it. So if you see it still coming into the shop, you're like, didn't this end? That's a newer continuation.
Okay.
But the main story ended. It's very similar, like based on all the things you like that I also like. I think Postal would be one for you to check out. And you can start from the beginning, and the first volume is just as solid as everything else is.
Okay, yeah. That's an endorsement right there.
Yeah.
That
Do you want the story pitch? The story pitch is like, imagine, you know how like in or like the 1600s or whatever it was, they took all the criminals from the UK and sent them to Australia to basically like live. Imagine a town in Wyoming that served that same purpose. Only it wasn't a government thing. It was like kind of a secret thing where these criminals who there's no place for them in society. They come here for kind of a second chance at a normal life, and that is, and the mayor is this woman who kind of helps set up the town, and her son is the postmaster of the town, and he's kind of like a high functioning sociopath.
Yeah. Okay. Oh. Okay.
So he kind of solves mysteries, not Sherlock Holmesy, but there's something about him that kind of straddles that, and then that's where they drop you in, and then from there, just sort of imagine what a town in Wyoming that's not on the map of murderers and criminals would that turn into?
Right. Sorry.
That's right.
And I guess that sounds like, is he solving the crimes because in these cases because he wants to be a good person, or because he's like interested in a weird way about him,
Exactly. All of the above. So there's my pitch proposal. I'm surprised. I only bring it up because so many people who are really into comics haven't heard about it, or have, but you're like, I don't know, and it never quite.
I've seen it and restocked it so much, but I'm like, maybe one day.
Yeah. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you what your thoughts were. Since we talked about Hickman, Powers of X, House of 10, which just completed, and we're now in the main X-Men. If you're listening to the show in the future, at this point in time, we're into the main kind of X-Men reboot, all the different series. But Powers of 10, House of X brought us to that. Like, kind of basically took all of the X-Men canon and synthesized it into a single point, and now have allowed this reboot to happen in such a clean way. Todd and I have talked about it to death, but like, your take, I'm sure, is...
I'm... in one word, excited.
Yeah.
Because everything I've read from Hickman that's been long form, and when he plans on staying on for a while, he doesn't say anything in his writings. He doesn't put anything in there that isn't unintentional. Little details that you're like, well, when is that going to pay off? It may take years.
Yeah.
But when it hits that payoff point, it's going to be worth it, and it's going to enrich the story. He's putting mutants where they should be. We've known since, the 60s, that they're the next step in evolution. And now we're here in 2020. It's about time to put them at the forefront. It's about time for Charles to realize, hey, you are the next step. This is where you need to be.
Yeah.
The fact that he's working with Apocalypse, with Magneto, he brought in Mr. Sinister, it's amazing. Even Black Tom Cassidy in his respect and his protection of Professor X. I'm excited to see what Hickman's going to do because of his work independently, amazing. But if we're looking at Marvel, you have to compare it to his Marvel work. His Fantastic Four, established the Council of Reeds, set up the Fantastic Four in such a way that they became, what's the word? You can't have the Marvel Universe without Fantastic Four. And the void that he created when he did Secret Wars and left them without Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm and the kids, and only Johnny and Ben were left on Earth. He did that intentionally so that way when they returned, it would be impactful. What he's done with East of West, little things from the start up until where I'm at now, again, one issue away from finishing, he makes promises, but he makes good on those promises.
Yeah.
And he's made a lot of promises with the X-Men. Just in House of X and Powers of 10. And in the first few issues of X-Men and New Mutants and the other creators he's working with, the other books, he's made so many promises that I'm excited to see when it comes to fruition.
Well, I'm glad he did, because I would have preferred, just because I have so much to read, I would have preferred Powers of X House of 10 to kind of been like a self-contained thing. I appreciate that it's not, because it gives us all this but it means now I have to pay so much more attention to X-Men going forward. Like,
oh yeah,
why does Magneto suddenly wearing white? Like, I mean, all of these things that but we've talked about this briefly, but I want to pitch this to you on air. I have this theory that Hickman's white character is sort of his Dark Tower. If you look back to, I mean, most of his, I think Red Mask for Mars was the first appearance, but in most of his series, for Marvel or for independent creators, or for independent creations, he's got at least one kind of white character that's either, completely white and is absolutely representative of death, like in East to West, or is sort of an immortal character, or is kind of like an other, like in Black Monday Murders, or Dying in the Dead, or any of that stuff. And it's like, it was weird to see in House of X, like all of a sudden the cover, in that first cover that came out, when they did House of X, they're all walking through the Krakoan portal, and you see Magneto in white. You're like, oh my God, there it is again. Like this white character. The one I always forget to mention is in his Avengers Illuminati kind of little run he did, there's like basically like a Harbinger character who comes from Black Swan.
Yes.
Same exact thing.
And Reed is also wearing his Future Foundation outfit.
Yeah.
Which is white and black.
So I almost wonder if he's, intentionally, even unintentionally, kind of creating this sort of focal point that he, when he's all done at his career, he can kind of wrap everything around this idea. And it's because it keeps happening. It keeps popping up.
Well, and something I've noticed, reading the comics the way I do, and a Magneto point, which now that you've mentioned the theme there, I'm making these connections in my brain, and I'm like, holy shit, that's exactly what it is. Magneto wears white when he believes he's doing exactly what's right. He's doing what he thinks he should be doing, no matter the consequence. Not acting in anger, not killing people like that. Last time we saw him wear white like this was, I want to say, the last days of Magneto before Secret Wars.
Okay.
And he went to go find, people, Nazis who had escaped, and he's like, I'm going to finish what I started. Not killing people, I'm killing Nazis.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. And now that we see him wearing white again, he feels justified. Yeah. He's doing the right thing again. He was also wearing white when Scott was, after the events of AVX, and Scott Summers had his group of offshoot mutants at the Weapon X facility, and Magneto's like, I'm gonna go back to training kids. I'm gonna do the right thing. I'm gonna do right by Charles. Death in East of West is doing what he knows is right, no matter the consequence.
Yeah.
Reed, when he is doing Future Foundation and when he's part of the Illuminati, is doing what he thinks is right, regardless of consequence. I think that
even Black Swan, she's like, look, we have to blow up these worlds, otherwise the whole universe dies.
That's it, man.
That's interesting. Ooh. Now I need to go back. Because Black Monday Murders is the only thing, because it's almost like the kind of the, I don't know, have you jumped into that yet?
No.
Oh, dude, get ready.
I know it's going to be something that I won't be able to pull myself out of.
I am hoping, we did a book club episode last time about that, just Todd and I, but I'm hoping Evie does a book club for Black Monday Murders, because it will be so worth it. But there's a kind of the same characters appear there, but they're almost like witches familiars. Kind of they're sort of these. Yeah. But I'm gonna go back now and look at all the different appearances and see, because I like this. Like, if there's an intent. Even because I first thought, well, it all represents death, but I'm like, that's too easy. There's something else going on here, and I like this take. I like this idea that it's characters who feel they're absolutely justified in what they're doing,
no matter what. They may have to sink a freighter.
Yeah.
But that's what it costs.
Oh, that was worth bringing up. I like that. I mentioned this to a guy at a shop in Portland, and his, not even at that level, just saying like, did you ever notice? And he's like, oh, and he immediately started going through, and I was like, oh no. I thought this was more obvious, but it's, I'm gonna keep an eye on it, because like, now that he's done with East of West and he has more time for other stuff, I'm curious where that pops up. Let's do. I always like to kind of close out on the lightning round.
Yeah, man, hit me with
fun stuff. Right out of the gate, we're both big Dragon Ball Z fans. Favorite DBZ villain?
Oh,
knowing that many of them ultimately become friends or heroes, but like villains.
It's got to be Perfect Cell.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking villain, like in that sense, I mean, you want to say Frieza.
Yeah. You want to say Frieza, but that's so obvious.
It's right there with Cell and all the other androids that came before Cell, and then that absorbing of them. something about that messed me up as a kid. And so when you say villain, I'm like, no, that's a bad guy. Like that is a bad guy.
He was also deliciously malevolent, and he just sort of like, especially when we became perfect, he was just like, you could tell this is a character who was so confident. Like Frieza seemed very insecure most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, even as Frieza was like evolving into like the different, it's just like constantly insecure. Cell was like, once he became perfect, he was like, you know what? I'm just gonna hang out here.
That's right.
You know, this wacky newscaster is just being annoying. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
Yeah, you almost want to say Majin Buu, but you know.
You almost do.
I also like Big Chubby Boo, you know?
Majin Buu was interesting though because Majin Buu broke all the rules. Like, you know, they're like, we're safe in the hyperbolic time chamber. Oh shit!
That's
and like,
right. No, you're not.
Majin Buu shows up. So that was interesting, you know. And then the fact that Majin Buu had this great kind of reincarnation arc at the end, which, you know, if you haven't seen it,
and in Super, fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. Man, okay, interesting. Okay, so I think Cell would probably. We forget Piccolo was a villain first too.
Yes, you do. But I mean, when that man became Gohan's stepfather,
Yeah.
you know, his adoptive dad. Piccolo's my favorite, and I will never look at him as a villain.
It will never get better for me, even though the animation was a little it'll never get better for me than when Piccolo goes to Namek. After, you know, he's the one they resurrect. He goes to Namek and he fuses with Nail, like the other Namekian who was kind of the guardian of their sort of high priest, I forget, guru. He fuses with Nail and he goes to confront Frieza, and like he just wipes the floor with Frieza. And I'm like, oh my god! And it starts with him like after he fuses, he's like, I can do this, and you're just like, yes, Piccolo,
yes you can.
I remember like watching that on Cartoon Network, like literally punching a hole in my wall.
Dude.
Like I'm like, this is because Piccolo for me was, until Vegeta had a heel turn, I was just like, Piccolo was it for me.
Because he's such a great character, man. There's a reason why I got a pop figure of him. I got a statue of him.
Yeah.
I mean, I cosplayed as him a few years back, and it's just he's my favorite.
But he's like the Thousand Shades of Grey character.
Yes.
He's kind of like that prototypical Western, you know, character. Just kind of like, you know, he's above the law. He'll do what he thinks is right by his own justice, and he's super complicated. And like Goku's all like, you know, sunshine and rainbows and like everything's cool.
I want to fight you.
Yeah. And without any like Goku's like the personification of pure innocence, and like I think Piccolo was always the adult in the room. You know, just like, all right, guys.
That is such a good way to put that.
I mean, you think about it when like Goku's off fighting whoever, you know, like the main battle's happening. Like Piccolo's the one kind of at home base going, okay, here's what we got to do. Trunks and Goten, you're gonna fuse. We're gonna get this right. Like he's the one kind of the tactician, because his power, you know, as it goes on, his power gets less and less interesting, sadly. But cool. I like that. We'll do a Dragon Ball Z podcast next time. He-Man or G.I. Joe?
You know, it depends. I want to say He-Man, but I grew up with a little more G.I. Joe. Yeah.
Really is kind of what you started with.
Yeah, and I mean, as bad as those movies were when I saw them, you know, when I was younger, they weren't too bad. Going back and watching them as an adult, they're garbage. But yeah, no, G.I. Joe for sure. I loved all their stupid names and their gimmicks. You know?
I just love that Cobra is the only evil organization that announces itself when it arrives. Cobra! In case you all forgot, we have the logos on our helicopters, but we're going to tell you anyway.
Yeah, in case you can't read, or if there's any blind G.I. Joes like Soundwave, because they also have like Transformer names.
Yeah.
It's this weird.
That was great branding too. That's like Cobra Commander knew that. He started an agency after that was done. He's like, we're gonna go to Chicago, brand corporations. Let me tell you what happens when you have to always say your name when you come in.
You own the room when you do that. You know?
I'm gonna have to. This is a sketch we're doing. By the
I
way,
was saying you're right. Yeah, and I'm also gonna have to start going into places and being like, Daniel. What?
And have your like logo like on your arm. And just sit down. It's like just making sure.
Yeah, just so you guys know. Hey.
Favorite Ghostbuster?
Spengler.
Ooh.
I like that he is the brains behind all of this, and when you start to see his stuff come into play, he's just like yes, like I knew it. Like we can trap ghosts, we can help people.
Yeah.
And then of course you've got your other Ghostbusters who will remain nameless, who want to just make a buck off of it.
Yeah.
I like that Spengler is still there, and he's kind of, I don't want to say he's the heart, but in a way he kind of is.
Kind of is, yeah.
So yes,
all right.
Absolutely Spengler.
No wrong answer for that question, obviously.
No.
Best iteration of Batman in any medium.
Ooh, Ooh.
Right?
Man.
My answer to this changes often.
Yeah, I always like Christian Bale's Batman. Not his Bruce Wayne, but his Batman. But for my money, I'm gonna have to go with. So okay, I'll give you a couple. Animated, it's gonna be animated series, obviously. Live action, it's gonna be Christian Bale's Batman. In comic books, it's gonna be Hush. Because the Batman in Hush was so close to breaking his code and had to have Commissioner Gordon put a gun to his head and say, "Hey man, if you cross this line, I'll hunt you down."
Yeah,
like we're allies, but if you kill this man,
yeah,
you break down everything that you stood for.
Equally hard question: favorite Marvel movie?
Favorite Marvel movie? Are we going? Well,
Not does it have to be best, just like your personal favorite.
that's a tough one because okay, so it's a tie between
Ties are fine.
Yeah, and they're both Captain America movies. A Winter Soldier, which just did it for me so many times when the action was perfectly paced, the jokes weren't in your face, kind of deal. What else can I rhyme with that? I already did two. Let's see. And Captain America: Civil War.
Yeah.
Something about that coming to life and seeing heroes face off. Sure, it wasn't as big as the comic Civil War, but still a fun movie. You get to see Ant-Man go to Giant Man at one point. And no, I had no idea Spider-Man was going to be in this movie.
Oh, that must have been killer for you.
Yeah, I stayed away from trailers.
How did you avoid that?
I went radio. I just went dark. I shut off my Facebook. I said I didn't go to any websites.
That's awesome.
Like that. And when it happened, I lost it. I was in the theater just like, yes. And, man,
I wish I had that innocence going into that. That would have been so great.
It was. It took a lot to get that.
I bet.
Not going in
Worth
knowing
it, though.
anything, and absolutely fantastic. You also get Black Panther's introduction. Just after seeing, not to dunk on the easily dunkable, but Thor 2 and Age of Ultron, which isn't the worst movie. It's just there's some parts in it that really take you out of the magic of it. And then you get something like Civil War, where it's like, hey guys, all your actions do have consequences. Yeah. It's time to pay the bill. Yeah. And I love that.
Awesome. This is probably an easy answer, but favorite comic book shop. And you can say, you can give it the obligatory answer and then another answer.
No, I'm actually going to say Austin Books and Comics in Austin, Texas.
Nice. Good shout out.
I love that shop so much. They've also got this huge Hulk statue, or not statue, but it's life size. You can stand by it and see how tall you would be compared to the Hulk.
That's awesome.
Oh man. Great section, great selection, great back stock, cool figures, amazing toys, great prices, great staff. They never let me down in the whole time I was in Austin. Austin Books and Comics, my absolute favorite comic book shop.
Damn, that's a great recommendation. Independence Day or Men in Black?
Men in Black.
Good. Best song from the 80s? I didn't say favorite. I mean, I say best. I want to hear. I want to hear what you think the best song. From the, I'm not going to judge you because.
Best song from the 80s? It's going to be Square Biz by Tiffany.
Whoa.
Is it Tiffany who sings that?
Let's find out.
Yeah. It is so... watch, it's going to be from like the early 90s. Is it Stephanie?
Oh, my God. Square Biz. Tina Marie.
Tina Marie. And when did that come out?
Oh, great question. 1970. Let's look here. 81.
Ah, yes.
Wow.
Got it.
Early 80s, too. Dang, that's a deep cut.
Oh, man. It is like, you know how like when rap was first really taken off and everyone kind of had that same cadence and,
Yeah.
So we clap our hands and then we go to dance and everybody's going to come and do a thing. Like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. This is so much that, but it's the kind of dancey thing you'd expect like in LA in like the 80s or 90s or even New York, where it's like, oh, here's the kids dancing on the in the streets and on the the fire escapes.
Yeah.
It's, man, if you have not heard Square Biz by Tina Marie, listen to it and hate me later.
I love it. I love this question because I'm getting such interesting answers. Like it's never like kind of a straightforward thing. I love people are going deep. I love this question. That's great. And I'm a big 80s music fan, so I haven't heard this in a long time.
Yeah, it's on my because I found it recently on an old CD, and I'm like, oh, that's going on the Spotify playlist.
Yes.
That's now in rotation, and I can't get enough of it. It's there's never a wrong time to listen to the song.
Love it. Final question, and this is something we haven't talked about much because I always never know who's a big Doctor Who fan because I'm a big Doctor Who fan, but
I am a Whovian.
Oh my God! If you're,
die.
He is showing me right now an amazing wrist tattoo of like a Time Lord symbol that looks Gallifreyan. Yeah,
and it's an Amy Poehler quote.
Whoa!
The doing is the thing.
How the hell did you translate that?
I went through 5 different translators online and found that they matched up, and the ones that matched up, and said, okay, that's the closest I'll get.
Oh my God! So we're gonna have a doctor. You're gonna have to come back and have a Dragon Ball Z cast episode and a Doctor Who cast.
Oh yeah, man, I'm in.
I can go deep, but favorite Doctor. And you can give me different ones for different reasons, but if you had to pick, if you wanted one to come, save you from certain doom.
Oh, I mean, okay.
Because you want both a technical competency, but you also want a personality that you're like, okay, I'm going to hang with this guy or gal.
Because, that is so tough, man. I love Matt Smith and I love David Tennant, and I think the thing is, David Tennant would try the hardest to save me. Mm-hmm. But then you also got to go back to the Fifth Doctor with the celery in his shirt, and he would save you. Mm-hmm. But then, how bad is the danger? Because Capaldi, but I'm not talking season 1 Capaldi. I'm talking his final season Capaldi. Yep. That mad professor, would go to the ends of the earth and burn shit down just to make sure you're okay. I'm gonna have to say, season 3 of his run, Capaldi.
Yes. Oh! We are definitely on the same page. Any answer would have been acceptable, but there's something about Capaldi for me. Like I'm going to cry saying it. I have never blubbered, and my wife was there to see it, so hard than that the finale episode, the twice, where he transitions, and it's like, where he regenerates rather. Well, he transitions and regenerates. Yeah. But like, the idea to see he's the first Doctor actor who took the Doctor on a true arc from one thing to a very different thing, and then to tie that into his final monologue. I might make you cry saying this.
Don't do it, man.
I submit to you and to our listeners that episode of Doctor Who, I'm going to put the Jodie Whittaker stuff in a different box because they're elevating it to such a new level that it's almost not fair.
Oh, there's so much good stuff in this last season, this current season.
So we're going to put a pin in that for now. I have a friend of mine, Brianna, says that's not fair. It has to all be the same. Like, no. We're going to put that just over here. But I submit to you that Twice Upon a Time, that last Capaldi episode where the original William Hartnell Doctor appears, is the greatest episode of Doctor Who of all time because it is about it happens to be about.
I'm getting chills over here just thinking about it.
Wait till I give you because you haven't heard my sort of my take on this. On one level, it is about 2 old guys helping each other die. You can almost imagine that story occurring in like a ward, at like a sick ward in a hospital or something, and you could have that same script almost work very functionally. But then you get to his and so I'm already in a mess just from having to deal with that and seeing
Bill.
And Bill is one of the best companions of all time.
Oh my God!
But then you get to his monologue, and it didn't. I blubbered so much, and at first I thought I was just sad that he's going, but then I rewatched it with this in mind. I'm like, oh no, this is why. You get to that last monologue, and you think about what he's saying, and it's everything he's learned along the way, and it's like this is a letter he's writing to a daughter he'll never get to meet. This is what I want you to be. It's like he's telling the next Doctor, I want you to be this. I want you to, I'm never going to get to see you grow up. So here, and then when he changes and you see Whittaker standing there and you're like, oh my God.
Oh my God, dude.
I started, and so when I hit that, then I cried even harder the next time. It took me 5 times watching that just to watch it without being a complete, utter mess.
Yeah, no.
And then you take that into watching these Whittaker episodes, and you're like, man, all I think of is like, your dad would be so proud of you.
Yeah, no, exactly. For me, the Capaldi moment I have, I think it was his second season when he's trapped in that prison and he's beating his fist against the diamond rock and he keeps going back and that sold me on Capaldi. But then when you get the Zygon inversion and he talks to the Zygon Clara and Kate Stewart, and he gives him the speech about changing or dying stupid.
Yes.
And he's so good. He's changed. He grew. He stopped being so angry.
Yeah, he starts off very angry, very, very distant, and he becomes almost like Doc Brown from Back to the Future. He becomes this just wonderfully warm, and his hair gets bigger as he goes.
That's my favorite thing. He's got the professor hair.
And then they just decide, well, let's just make him a professor.
And it's amazing. Of course, I would take his class.
Yeah.
I would go and audit all those.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm so glad. Because I every once in a while I'll encounter someone, he's like, yeah, Capaldi's okay. I'm like, oh my God. I have to stop myself from having, and I get that, everybody's doctor, some of it's like, your sensibility. Some of it's like, people like Matt Smith because he's more whimsical, but I've never seen an actor do so much with a character and bring it to just like this perfect conclusion. Then I'm like, the show could just end right now.
Right. Well, and I mean, the reason I say the hard choice was between Tennant and Capaldi, I love Tennant to death. He's amazing from his first, from the day he arrived on the planet and blinking stepped into the sun, to his.
That's a great shout out on multiple levels.
To his, I don't want to go. Unfortunately, though, Tennant says more often than any doctor, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry."
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of people have died in his care. The one who, lost everything, the one who forgot everything, the one who remembers, and the one who forgets with the day of the doctor. And then you get Capaldi, who decides no more.
Yeah.
I'm not losing anyone else ever again.
Yeah.
That's why you want him to save you.
Yes.
That's why you want him on your side. He is the smartest man in the room, and he's also the most compassionate.
Yeah.
It's
perfect way. Oh my God, that's a perfect way to summarize it. Because he becomes the most compassionate doctor at the end of it. Oh, all right. We will definitely have to come back and do a Doctor Who cast, because now that I know, A, you're a hardcore fan, but B, that we're on the same page about that, we can go deep.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my heavens. Well, man, it's been so much fun. Anything else you want to promote or anything, or shout out again? Escaping Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Escaping Podcast, we're actually getting our own little independent network going.
Yes,
we've got
excellent.
one spin-off show going right now, and that's Yo Where the Caption's At. If you listen to Escaping, Kelsey, my co-host, he and his buddy Ross take a different look on pop culture and what's going on there. Got a couple new shows coming out. Space Pirate Radio. Be on the lookout for that.
Nice.
And another one in the works that we'll tell you about later. But mostly just check out Escaping Podcast. You can find me online, Daniel Rojas on Facebook, Blue Morpho on Instagram. One word, the O's are zeros. And I guess if you close your eyes and think really hard, you'll probably find me there too. So
love it. On that note, it's been great, man. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for having me, man.
Thanks for listening. You can find us anywhere podcasts are found. Spotify, not yet, actually. We actually are not on Spotify at the moment. We were, and now we're kind of in transition. But everywhere else, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Stitcher, all of the above. And then we're panelism.inc. That's panelism.ink on Instagram. And that is actually also our website address, panelism.ink. Yes, that's an extension, not .com, not .us, just .ink. You'll find all our past episodes, other shows. Check them out. Definitely check out Daniel's shows. And we will probably have you back on sooner than later, sir.
Man, I really hope so. Also, one last shout out. If you haven't tried it, put your hash browns in a waffle maker. You'll thank me later.
Oh my God. Great. I'm going to do that when I get home. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you later. Happy reading.